Welcome back to the Deep Dive, and a big welcome to Module 8 of your social psychology course here at Los Angeles City College.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone.
So if the first 7 modules were, about getting inside your head, this one is really about the big, sometimes messy, but always fascinating adventure of us, the group.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, for students here in Los Angeles, think about it. You're navigating crowded freeways, maybe the expo line, you're balancing school, maybe a job, career plans, just figuring out your identity in this huge, diverse city. You are constantly in groups, defined by groups.
Absolutely. So this deep dive is all about group influence. It's really your essential guide, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Our mission today really is to pull out the key insights from this module. We want to understand how just having other people around changes us, how we perform, the decisions we make, even like who we think we are.
But this isn't just academic theory, right? This is practical stuff.
Oh, totally. Understanding group dynamics, that's not a soft skill anymore. It's a career necessity. It could be the difference between leading a project effectively or, well, getting bogged down by group issues.
Okay, so before we really jump into the deep end, let's just establish the basics. What actually counts as a group in psychology? It's not just a bunch of people waiting for a bus, is it?
No, exactly. The module gives us a clear definition. A group is 2 or more people who, 1, interact with each other, 2, influence one another, and 3, this is key, perceive themselves as us.
That us feeling, that shared identity.
Precisely. That's the psychological glue. And we form these groups because they meet really fundamental human needs. The module highlights 3 big ones.
Okay. Right.
First, the need to affiliate, that basic sense of belonging, getting support. Second, the need to achieve working together on goals we couldn't tackle alone. Think group projects, sports teams.
Right.
And third, maybe the most profound, is gaining a social identity. We figure out who we are partly by understanding which us we belong to.
Okay, that makes sense. Belonging, achieving, identity. Got it. So let's get into the first big effect the module talks about. Just the mere presence of others. Social facilitation.
Ah, yes, social facilitation. This is the classic one. The original idea was pretty simple. People tend to do simple, well-learned tasks better when others are watching.
Better.
Well, that was the original idea. The current understanding is a bit more nuanced. It's that the presence of others strengthens our dominant responses.
Dominant response. Okay, unpack that. Why is stronger different from better?
It's crucial because it explains a paradox. See, if the task is easy for you or something you've practiced a million times, like tying your shoes, your dominant response is likely the correct one. So having others around boosts your performance. You do it faster, maybe more accurately.
Okay, makes sense.
But if the task is difficult, complex, or new, like maybe trying to solve a tough math problem you've never seen before, your dominant response might be confusion or making a mistake. In that case, the presence of others actually impairs your performance.
Ah, I see. So the audience just amps up whatever is most likely to happen anyway.
Exactly. Think about giving a presentation. If you know your stuff inside out, the audience might energize you. If you're shaky on the material, that same audience can make you freeze up even more.
That clarifies it perfectly. And the module points to real-world evidence, like the home advantage in sports.
Oh, yeah, that's a fantastic example. It's remarkably consistent across different sports. Home teams win about 6 out of 10 games, roughly. And the thinking is the supportive home crowd energizes the players, strengthening their well-practiced dominant skills.
And the flip side.
Well, look what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. Teams played in empty stadiums, right? And guess what? That home advantage significantly shrank or even disappeared in some cases.
Wow. So the crowd really does make a difference. But why? What is it about having people watch us that causes this arousal, this strengthening of dominant responses?
The module points to a couple of key mechanisms. First, there's something called evaluation apprehension.
Sounds serious.
It's basically worrying about how others are judging you. Am I doing this right? Do I look competent? That concern, that pressure of being evaluated creates arousal. Super relevant for job interviews, presentations, even first dates,
Definitely felt that one. What's the second mechanism?
It's simpler. Just plain distraction. When other people are present, whether they're co-actors or an audience, your attention gets divided. You're trying to focus on the task, but you're also wondering, what are they thinking? Are they watching me? That conflict for your attention also ramps up arousal.
And I guess the more people there are, the worse it gets.
Precisely. That leads us to crowding. The effect of others increases with their number. A large crowd intensifies arousal.
So crowds just make everything feel more intense.
Pretty much. They amplify whatever reaction is already starting. If you're in a happy, celebratory crowd, you feel even happier. If you're in a tense situation with people you dislike, a crowd can make you feel even more anxious or hostile. It just turns up the volume on the prevailing emotion.
Okay, so when we're individually accountable, when we feel like we're being watched, we get aroused, and our performance on simple things goes up. Complex things go down. Got it. But what happens
Well,
when nobody's really watching us specifically?
yeah.
Like in a group project where everyone gets the same grade.
Ah, yes. The classic group project dilemma. That brings us right into segment 2 and the concept of social loafing.
I think every student listening just pictured that one person in their group.
Laughs slightly. Probably. Social loafing is defined as the tendency for people to exert less effort when they pool their efforts toward a common goal, compared to when they are individually accountable.
So basically, people slack off when they can hide in the crowd.
In essence, yes. If your individual contribution isn't identifiable, or if you think the outcome doesn't really depend on your effort alone, the motivation dips. The result, the total group effort, is often much less than the simple sum of what each person could do individually.
And it gets worse as the group gets bigger, right?
Generally, yes. The bigger the group, the easier it is to feel like your own effort doesn't matter that much or won't be noticed, which, of course, leads to the phenomenon of the free rider.
The person who benefits from the group's work but contributes little or nothing.
Exactly. They get the good grade or enjoy the team's success without pulling their weight.
So, thinking practically, for our listeners who will be leading teams or working in collaborative environments, how do we fight this? How do we stop social loafing?
Well, the good news is we know what works. The module suggests several things. Groups tend to loaf less when the task itself is really challenging or appealing or involving, something people actually want to do.
Makes sense. Engagement matters.
Big time. Also, loafing decreases when the group members are friends or if they feel a strong identification with the group. And crucially, loafing drops when people feel their contribution is indispensable, like the project will fail without their specific input.
So, making individual contributions visible and necessary.
Absolutely. Visibility and feeling needed are key. It's often a design problem, not just a lazy person problem. Structure the work so individual effort counts and is recognized.
Okay, that's helpful. So, lack of accountability leads to loafing. But what happens when you combine that sort of diffusion of responsibility with the arousal we talked about earlier, especially in a large group?
Now you're moving at something potentially more volatile. De-individuation.
Losing ourselves in the crowd.
Pretty much. De-individuation is defined in the module as a loss of self-awareness and a loss of evaluation apprehension. You kind of forget yourself, you stop worrying about what others think of you specifically.
And the consequence of that?
You become much more responsive to the immediate group norms and the situation. This can go either way. It could lead to impulsive, destructive behavior if the group norm leans that way, like in a riot. Or sometimes it can lead to intense pro-social behavior, depending on the group's focus.
What makes it more likely to happen?
Group size is a major factor. The bigger the group, the more anonymous you feel. It fuels that everyone's doing it mentality, which lets people maybe sidestep personal responsibility for their actions. They attribute their behavior to the situation, not themselves.
And anonymity itself.
Huge. Anything that makes you feel anonymous, being in a large crowd wearing a uniform or a mask, or, very relevant today, being behind an anonymous online profile can lower inhibitions.
Yeah, the internet seems like a prime breeding ground for this. Anonymous comments, online bullying. It feels like de-individuation in action.
Sadly, yes. The perceived anonymity online can definitely reduce self-awareness and restraint for some individuals.
Is there an antidote? A way to counteract this loss of self?
There is. The psychological opposite of de-individuation is self-awareness.
Being more conscious of yourself.
Exactly. Anything that makes you more self-conscious, seeing yourself in a mirror, knowing you're being filmed, even just consciously thinking about your own values, tends to increase self-control. It makes us act more in line with our own attitudes and less susceptible to impulsive group behavior.
So, for anyone aiming for leadership or just personal integrity, cultivating self-awareness seems pretty fundamental.
Absolutely critical.
The-
Okay, shall we shift gears now from individual behavior in groups to how groups themselves make decisions?
Let's do it. Segment 3, group decision-making. We start with group polarization. This feels really relevant to today's world, especially online.
It really is. Group polarization refers to the tendency for group discussion to strengthen the members' average initial pre-existing attitudes.
Strengthen, not average out. So groups don't usually find a middle ground.
Not typically, no. The common finding is that discussion makes the group's average opinion more extreme in the direction it was already leaning. If people start out slightly favoring an idea after a discussion, they're likely to favor it much more strongly.
I remember reading about the risky shift, the idea that groups make riskier decisions than individuals. Is that always true?
That was an early finding, but it's more nuanced, as the module explains. It's not always about risk, it's about intensification. Take a different scenario. Imagine a group discussing whether someone should invest their life savings in a very safe, low-yield bond. If the initial leaning is caution, the group discussion will likely make them even more cautious.
Ah, so it just pushes the group further along the path they were already heading down.
Precisely. Discussion enhances the initial average inclination.
And you see this playing out all over Los Angeles, right?
Yeah,
People sorting themselves into neighborhoods or online communities with like-minded people.
absolutely. Self-segregation, online echo chambers where you only hear confirming views, even choosing news sources that align with what you already believe. These all fuel polarization. You're surrounded by voices reinforcing your existing perspective.
Why does this happen? What are the mechanisms driving polarization?
Two main influences are usually cited. First, informational influence. In a group discussion, you hear more arguments favoring the dominant viewpoint, maybe some you hadn't considered. Especially if you voice agreement, you rehearse these arguments and become more convinced.
Okay, hearing more reasons. What's the second one?
Normative influence. This is more about social comparison. We want people to like us, to accept us. So we might express stronger opinions in the group's favored direction to seem like a good group member, to fit in. We gauge the group norm and shift towards it, or even slightly beyond it, to gain approval.
Fitting in versus being informed. Okay, now this desire to fit in, this group cohesion, sometimes it can go too far, right? Leading to really bad decisions.
Exactly. That takes us to the dangers of groupthink.
Groupthink, that sounds ominous.
It can be. Groupthink is a mode of thinking that people engage in when they are deeply involved in a cohesive in-group, and their striving for unanimity overrides their motivation to realistically appraise alternative courses of action. Basically, keeping harmony becomes more important than making a good decision.
And history has some pretty stark examples, doesn't it? The module mentions Pearl Harbor, the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Yes, those are classic case studies often analyzed through the lens of groupthink. The conditions that breed it often include 1, a very amiable, cohesive group that likes being together, 2, relative isolation of the group from dissenting viewpoints, and 3, often a directive leader who signals what decision they prefer.
Irving Janis identified several symptoms. If you had to pick one symptom that's maybe the most insidious, the most crucial for our listeners to watch out for as they move into team environments or leadership roles, what would it be?
Ooh, that's tough. They're all important. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably say self-censorship.
People holding back their own doubts.
Exactly. When individuals decide not to voice their concerns or counter arguments because they don't want to rock the boat or seem disagreeable, that silence creates an illusion of unanimity and prevents critical information from surfacing. It's the quiet killer of good decision-making. Politeness triumphs over truth.
That's a powerful warning. So how do we prevent it? What's the practical advice from the module for making better group decisions?
Giannis offered some clear recommendations. First, leaders should strive to be impartial. Don't state your preference up front. Second, actively encourage critical evaluation. Maybe even assign someone the role of devil's advocate.
Someone whose job it is to poke holes in the plan.
Precisely. Third, welcome critiques from outside experts or trusted colleagues who aren't part of the group's inner circle and its pressures. And finally, maybe the most concrete step. Before finalizing a big decision, hold a second chance meeting where members are explicitly encouraged to air any lingering doubts.
Great advice. Okay, we've talked a lot about how the group sways the individual. But can it work the other way? Can one person or a small minority actually change the group's direction? That's segment 4, the influence of the minority.
Yes, absolutely. It's not easy, but minority influence is real. History is full of examples of individuals or small groups shifting the majority view over time. The module highlights key factors that make a minority persuasive.
Like what?
Consistency is number 1. Minorities that stick to their position, that don't waver, are far more influential than those who seem unsure or compromise too easily. Persistence gets noticed.
Okay, consistency. What else?
Self-confidence. A minority that conveys confidence in its position tends to be more credible and persuasive. And perhaps the most powerful tactic is causing defections from the majority.
Someone switching sides.
Exactly. When someone from the majority group publicly defects and joins the minority position, it shatters the illusion of consensus and makes other majority members question their own stance. A single defector can be incredibly potent.
Even though expressing a minority view might initially be harder, the module mentions a minority slowness effect.
Right, people holding minority views often express them less quickly or confidently at first, but consistent, confident persistence can eventually make the majority pause, rethink, and sometimes change.
This connects really well to the idea of leadership, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Often a great leader starts out as a minority voice with a different vision.
That's a perfect link. Leadership, as defined here, is the process by which certain group members motivate and guide the group, and how they do that can vary. The module outlines a few key styles.
Let's touch on those.
Okay, first there's task leadership. This style is very goal-oriented, organizing work, setting standards, focusing on achieving the objective. Think classic project management.
Makes sense? Focused on the what?
Then there's social leadership. This style is more focused on the who and how, building teamwork, mediating conflicts, offering support, boosting morale, keeping the group cohesive and motivated. Both styles are often needed.
And the third style, the one that seems linked to that minority influence idea.
That would be transformational leadership. These leaders inspire followers to commit to a shared vision. They often articulate a compelling future, challenge the status quo, much like a persistent minority, and empower followers to achieve more than they thought possible. They exert significant influence by changing how people see themselves and the group's mission.
Really inspiring stuff. So we've covered a lot. The good, the bad, the complicated aspects of groups. Social facilitation, loafing, de-individuation, polarization, groupthink, minority influence, leadership. After all this, the big question is, are groups bad for us?
Well, the module and social psychology generally takes a balanced view. The answer is clearly no. Groups aren't inherently bad. We absolutely need them. They're essential for our survival, our well-being, support, security. We're fundamentally social creatures.
But they have downsides.
They do. Perhaps it's better to think of groups not as good or bad, but as amplifiers, magnifying tools.
Amplifiers, how so?
They tend to accentuate our pre-existing tendencies. If individual inclinations are positive, say, towards cooperation, creativity, or helping the group interaction can enhance those qualities beautifully. But if the underlying tendencies lean towards negativity, prejudice, or aggression, the group can unfortunately amplify those destructive forces too.
So the group itself isn't the problem, it's what the group brings out in us.
Exactly. And recognizing these forces is so crucial for navigating life, especially in a dynamic, competitive place like Los Angeles. Your success, both personally and professionally, really depends on being aware of when a group is lifting you up versus when it might be subtly encouraging you to, say, lower your standards or silence your better judgment.
That's a really important takeaway for everyone listening. As you think about your own career paths, your ambitions, your life goals, maybe pause and consider. How are you going to actively counteract social loafing when you're part of a team? What specific things will you do to recognize and resist groupthink pressures in your future workplace?
And building on that, here's a final thought to chew on, especially relevant in our hyper-connected yet often siloed world. We know polarization is powerful, and we tend to drift into echo chambers online and offline. So the challenge is, how can you, starting today, deliberately seek out diverse perspectives, maybe even viewpoints that make you uncomfortable, to ensure your most important decisions aren't just amplified versions of biases you already hold?
That's a deep question and a really valuable one to reflect on. We hope this deep dive has given you some useful frameworks as you engage with the material in Module 8. I'm genuinely curious to hear about the discussions and assignments that come out of this module for you all.
Me too. It's fascinating stuff. So until next time, keep observing the groups around you and the roles you play within them.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.